Hi, welcome back to Waxing On. It is Wednesday, Classic Rock. And we're kind of following up on something I talked about last Friday, when we did the Jack Kerouac story. That time I said Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and William S. Burroughs were some of the pioneers of the Beat generation. And we looked at Kerouac's book that he had written while he was living with Burroughs down in Mexico City. Now, another fellow who claims he was really influenced by Ginsberg and Burroughs was Jim Carroll. We mentioned him as well because he did some voicings for the play Dr. Sachs. And I told you he had albums out, so I'm going to look at a couple of those today just to kind of follow up on that. Second album I had, Jim Carroll Band, Dry Dreams. It was not as big a hit as the first one. I'm just showing you that. We'll get it out of the way, and then we'll talk about the main album. There's Jim on the cover. I'm going to go over his first album. And this came out 1980, I believe it was, 1980 on Atlantic Records. Now, Carroll, an author, poet, and he'd written out some books. I mean, her biggest hit was the book Basketball Diaries, which was later turned into a movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio. And he also had books of poetry out. So if you go on Wikipedia, you'll see there's quite a few lists of the poetry books. There's a list of the albums. He had quite a few more albums than just the two I have. I only have two here. But the one that was his biggest hit was the album called Catholic Boy. Jim and his parents on the cover. And the big hit from this album was a song called People Who Died. Now, it got a lot of airplay on FM radio up this way. Certainly nothing that would be suitable or would fit the playlist for AM radio. Now, by 1980s, FM radio was really taking off, kind of alternative radio, a lot of different music that you weren't hearing on that AM dial. And for myself, and I know a lot of my friends, this is where we were kind of finding our home when we were listening to the radio, was the FM stations. University stations were broadcasting as well, so you heard some of this on those. He had been, before this album came together, he had been hanging out with Patti Smith, on tour with her, and one night, the opening act didn't show up for her band. So she suggested, Jim, why don't you go out and just read some of your poetry, we'll play in the background. So we'll have the band playing in the background, you doing your poetry in front. Apparently it must have been a success, because he then went out and formed the Jim Carroll Band and started cranking out the albums. Now, he doesn't really sing on here. He's vocalizing his poetry. I don't even say he's just reading it or saying it. He's not. He does have a special delivery that goes with it, kind of like with the Burroughs one. If you watched our Burroughs show a couple of years ago now, when he tells the story, to hear him tell it in his own words and his own voice, his own style, it's really something special. Same way with Jim here. It's different when the poet's doing his material, because we've had other albums, and you know, there's been some clunkers out there. The William Shatner, Jack Webb, where they have had orchestras or bands playing behind them, and they just narrated the words or said the words, and I mean, they're a novelty. This isn't that. This is something totally different. And the way he vocalizes things, it really, excuse me, really brings the song together. Now, the band, we got Jim on vocals, obviously, Wayne Woods on drums, Tyrell Wynn on guitar, Steve Lindsley on bass, and Brian Lindsley on guitar. And that's the group. Now, they consider this punk music. Well, it's loud, it's bold, it's in your face, it's not easy listening music. Now, it was listed as being one of the last great punk albums. And it's got a lot of great reviews, this one especially. Again, the second album, I don't remember hearing much of it on the radio. I don't remember hearing much talk about it. So just the old diehard fans had actually picked up the other album. All the songs on here are written by Carroll. Now they got some extra names in there, like the guitar players and that, so it doesn't say lyrics and music, who's doing it, but we're going to assume, I guess, with Jim being the poet, that those are his words. When I go back to the second album, just for the sake of showing you, it came with a liner inside where all the words are listed for the songs. And I'll tell you, it reads like poetry. And just to read the liners without hearing the music even is pretty powerful stuff. The songs are not necessarily happy songs. I mean, it's a punk album. You're not going to get that. They're not really dance tunes, but it's him telling his story in his words, in his way. The album, we got Wicked Gravity, Three Sisters, Day and Night, Nothing Is True, and the big hit, People Who Died. So friends of his that have passed away by any number of reasons. You'll hear it in the tune. Side 2 is City Drops Into the Night, a song called Crow, It's Too Late, I Want the Angel, and Catholic Boy. Now, Jim actually got the recording contract by support of another musician, and that was Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. Kind of was impressed with what he did, had some influence in getting Jim signed to a label. Now, also on this album, another connection to the Stones, Bobby Keys, one of their longtime sax players, is featured on the album as well. The album, Catholic Boy, 1980, Jim Carroll, poet, influenced by the beat writers, Ginsberg and Burroughs. I mean, it's just a style all its own. It's something you want to check out. Again, it may not be something you listen to all the time, but I'll tell you, it was very adventurous in 1980. It really got a lot of attention. The band's excellent. The lyrics, the performance, you can't go wrong. Jim Carroll Band, Catholic Boy. Check it out. That's it for Wednesday. We'll see you on Friday. We're up in Canada here in North America. I'm not sure with some of the other countries. We're starting a long weekend. On Friday, it's a Easter weekend here. So we'll have a little special show on Friday, something a little lighter for us to get into the weekend with. Hope you join us. Till then, take care. Stay safe. Thanks for stopping by.